KTM friends. Today we're going to do a little different adventure. This is going to be a clutch replacement on a KTM 4-stroke. This could also apply to KTM 2-strokes and perhaps other brand 2-strokes. This particular bike is a 2012 KTM 450 XCW enduro bike, and I believe it probably has the original clutch in it with probably 250, maybe 300 hours on the bike total. This is going to be the first of 2 or 3 how-to videos. The clutch replacement video is what you'll be looking at today, and then we will also probably have a how-to video on how to install a rear fender pack, such as this Nelson Rig rear fender pack on your motorcycle, and we'll probably go through the toolkit and some of the necessities in there that I put in my toolkit, and you might get an idea for something else you need in your toolkit as well. And we're also going to be doing a video on how to replace the water hoses on a 4-stroke motorcycle KTM. Did not see a video that I really liked on YouTube for this, so we'll be doing a video, and that's to be coming soon. This particular video is going to be replacing the thermostat bypass hose kit from Samco Sport, so stay tuned for that. And hey friends, if you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel, the Black Family Adventure channel, by pressing on the subscribe icon on the lower right hand part of your screen. We'd love to have you join us for many of our adventures in Texas, Utah, and Colorado. Let's go over some of the tools that you will need so you can start getting those together before you attempt this. We've already drained the oil, so do buy some oil and put fresh oil and filter. You can use Motor X or pretty much any 4T compatible spec brand. I like the castor oil. I use 2050 in this. You can use 1050. Pretty much bulletproof. 1050, 2050. You're probably not going to notice a big difference, but I'm not a professional, by the way, full disclosure, so take the advice and the installation procedure with a grain of salt. Have done this one other time and do have a pretty good background with working on automotive things. You're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers, ratchet, 8mm socket, screwdriver, some type of pick. You can manufacture something out of a large paper clip or use a small screwdriver. If you have an impact, that's great. Not necessary, but sure is helpful in removing the clutch hub nut. Using a 1 16th socket on the end. Forgot the millimeter size compatible for that, but if you have a millimeter, I think it's in the 22, 24 range. If you have a electric screwdriver of some type, you can use that to remove the clutch hub bolts, clutch cover bolts rather, and works really well. You don't want to tighten it with that, but it does help in removing them. Also, torque wrench is a necessity on tightening the clutch hub to make sure you get it to the proper torque. Clutch hub holding tool. This particular holding tool is not an expensive one. You can buy them on Amazon. They have their limitations. This one's a little cheap, but you may find that you only need it once or twice, so you can make an inexpensive one work. Also, you may want some latex gloves of some type, paper towels, and a bolt and nut container to keep your parts separated. With that in mind, let's start the procedure. The first item is to remove the brake return spring. We've already drained the oil, as I said, and now we're just going to start the removal process for the clutch hub cover. So, a lot of different ways to do this. Needle nose pliers typically work as good as anything. So You can either remove it completely or just leave it dangling on the side of the brake lever. Another good idea is to find a clamp of some type that will hold your brake lever down. That will allow you to access the cover, remove and reinstall the cover. And then you simply start taking the cover bolts off. And the clutch cover just pops off. There we go. Push that brake lever down and work its way out there. We'll notice that on the back of the clutch cover, there's also some clutch material. I'm actually peeling off here. We'll have to clean that up. Probably debris from clutch disc fibers. There's also an O-ring around that. You'll want to make sure that that's in place before you put it back on as well. Now this clutch, if you'll notice, has a clutch weight attached to the outside of the clutch hub. This clutch weight was added to help prevent stalling. And KTMHusky.com, bestdualsport.com, I believe, is the website also, where you can order one of those. Seems to work pretty well in tight wooded sections where you may not have the skill or the ability to keep the engines revved up. Helps keep it from going dead, basically, stalling. Okay, let's put our clamp back on. There we go. And then next is to remove these 6 clutch hub bolts, and that'll also remove the weight. Okay, here we go. All right, we'll keep those bolts in place. And on the back of this is the pressure plate spring, and this is the pressure plate. We'll be reusing those. If you pull it off, there is a snap ring of some type, and part of the clutch disc plates came off with it. So on the inside of the pressure plate, you'll see the bearing, pilot bearing, throwout bearing right here on the inside of this. It does come out, but we'll leave it in there for now. Turn it upside down. Next thing, you just start removing your clutch plates and disc. You don't want to drop one of these pins down in the engine. That would be a disaster. Very difficult to get them back out. Take it off. There we go. We got it now. Take the hub off with it. For those mechanics that are watching this, I'm sure you find this quite hilarious, because there's always a technique to every repair procedure. You just got to do it enough to figure it out, or hope someone on YouTube shares it with you next time. Okay. One of the things to check on here is going to be this basket to see if there's any wear. It's called the clutch basket here. You want to see if there's any grooves or any excess wear in these pins here. Does appear to be that there is. So we're going next remove this clutch hub nut. And this is the rod when you press your clutch lever that actually pushes out against the pressure plate and spring and releases your clutch disc. Okay, while the compressor charges up with air for our air wrench to remove the center clutch hub, I thought we would go ahead and remove the tabs from these tab washer. A couple of the tools that I forgot to add to the list earlier was a small chisel and a hammer, and I guess a hammer is something you pretty much need for every job, isn't it? So we're going to try to just bend these tabs back a little bit. You can use a screwdriver for this, although it might ruin your screwdriver. I do have a new tab washer to replace, although you probably can reuse these. I guess after they bend a couple of times they might actually break off. So the socket I'm going to be using is a 1 1/16. Seems to fit pretty good. I don't remember the millimeter size. Probably a 22, perhaps 24 millimeters, but it works just fine. Let's see if we've got enough air pressure to remove this bolt. We'll hold that. And we do. We'll have to retorque that going back down to about 74 foot-pounds or 100 Newton meters. So it's a clutch hub, bolt, and tab washer. And now the clutch hub, as you can see, comes off very easily. Slides right off. And on the back side of this should be a washer. It's stuck to the back of the clutch hub. Recommend just taking it immediately and putting it right back on so you don't forget. And we'll go over to the workbench and take this apart and put the new dampers in. Okay, now we are at the point of replacing the rubber dampers inside of the clutch hub assembly. So we're going to turn the clutch hub assembly over and pull it apart. And we'll remove these old damper rubbers. There's 6 of them. And then we're going to install new damper rubbers. Can't go wrong. A little notch at the top. Only go on one way. I always hesitate to say you can't go wrong, but they do, in this case, only fit on there correctly one way, and it's not hard to figure it out. I hope you can see how they fit on there. There's a little shelf right there, and the rubber notch fits right up against that shelf on that inner hub. There we go. Got all those on there. And we'll take the old ones so we don't get those confused. You can tell how dry they are and hard compared to these. They've lost a lot of their dampening ability. 200 something hours, I believe, on this bike. And then we're going to do this hopefully the easy way. You can see where these bolts go right between each of those. There we go. And then we'll turn it over like this. And the idea is to get the hub all the way down flush. That might mean taking a small hammer Okay, as you can see, it finally flushed out. I just pressed it a little harder, and don't see any more play with those rubber dampers in there, so we should be good to go to reinstall. And we're getting ready for the reinstallation. If you have a KTM owner's manual for your bike, flip to the technical data, engine tightening torques, and you will see a spec there. They call them different things. There's an inner clutch hub, and then there's a primary gear nut. This is actually the primary gear nut, and as you can see, it is 100 Newton meters, 73.8 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, we are ready for reassembly with the clutch hub and the clutch disc. Hub's all ready to go. Our hub washer is right there on the splines. So all we're going to do is just slide this back on for now. Make sure it's seated there. With this tab washer will fit, so you can't go wrong. It goes on first, and then your nut goes on. And we'll bend those tabs down after. Already have our torque wrench set to 73.8 foot-pounds, 100 Newton meters, and we're going to start the torquing process now. This is what it looks like. There's a couple of different ways for this to go on, depending on the size indention in your hub. There's a smaller pin and a larger pin. I think we're going to try the larger pins for now. Okay, had a little problem getting my clutch holding tool, as you can see, to stay. So what I had to do was improvise with a wood clamp holding the jaws together. Puts a little extra tension on it, keeps the jaws on this cheap clutch holding tool from spreading out like that and releasing the clutch hub. So don't buy a cheap clutch holdings tool. Okay, as you can see, my clutch discs are in a pan of oil in a bag. I'm going to start taking those out and installing them one by one on the clutch hub. Okay, now we're going to bend these tabs back, and probably the best thing to do that with is a pair of channel lock pliers. Let's see what kind of luck we have here. It's a nice fit. Okay, now we're going to start putting the clutch disc back on, and we're going to insert these alignment pins. Alignment pins should flush out right there. Again, we do not want to risk dropping these. It's best to put a little bit of oil on them so they'll stick. I've got these clutch discs stacked in reverse order. So we'll put this first one up here. Get it started. Won't push it all the way back yet, so the pins won't move. Then the disc hopefully will go in here. There we go. And this last plate has an S at the top, if you can see that. I'm not sure what that indicates, but every time I've done this, I've always made sure that S was pointed out. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Someone can tell me. Okay, and now we have them all in, and we'll complete the setup in a minute. Okay, now we're going to put our push rod bearing in. Make sure, see, there's a washer on that. I want to make sure that that goes on there. And then the back of your pressure plate, at this top ring, it says top. We will make sure that we put that back at the top. There we go. And next is the pressure plate ring that goes on, and then the outer ring, which in this case is clutch weights. One of the most important items is making sure that this is in hole number 2 if you're set for number 2. There is a number 1, there's number 2, and number 3. I'm leaving it in number 2, which is what it was originally in. That's very important. Okay, and I'm going to mash the clutch pedal in, and you should be able to see this move in and out and flex those clutch plates against that spring. See if you can see that. Mashing it in now, you see how the clutch plate spring move in and out. I'll do that a couple of times, and then I'll go back and retighten those pressure plate bolts. I did clean out the clutch debris that was on the inside of this earlier. So O-rings in place here. Line these up very gingerly. There we go. And now it's time to put some oil in. Well, it did crank, and I don't hear anything rattling, so we must have done something right. Hope this is helpful to you. Stay tuned for our other videos on the rear fender bag and replacing these coolant hoses. We're going to remove the thermostat and add some new Samco Sport water hoses in one of our next videos. Thanks for joining us on the Black Family Adventure Channel.